this evening.
Hey, Sebastian.
Yeah. I think you might want to get a little closer to that mic if you can. Usually that helps. I can't tell how audible you are presently.
All right. Can you hear me now?
No, that's interesting. Let's try that. How about now? No? Oh, Okay. Go ahead.
Testing.
Nope. That's weird. How about that one?
Should I move over to a different?
No, let's see if this does something. Okay.
Testing now.
No. Okay. Great. Technical difficulties, folks. We love it here. Huh. Maybe you should move over to another mic. I'm thinking that there's something up with this one. Yeah. That one's probably a better candidate. Let's see how that does for us here. Oh, yeah, that's definitely, yep, that's the one. I gotta look at that mic later. Alright. Yep. Okay, cool, yeah, so I'm on the right mic, and then we turn this one off, and...
Testing.
Okay, so it is that mic that does that. Alright. One more time.
Testing.
Yep, there it goes.
All right.
We're good.
Cool.
All right. Well, to start us off here, a story that comes directly from you, but I'll read it because I have a very nice buttery voice. My brother Estel has no spiritual or meditative practice, has never made reference to a greater power or even another power in all the years I've known him. He does have one interesting thing. An undeniable interest in the subject of Bigfoot. So when he strong-armed me and the family into going to Sasquatch conference in Washington, I rolled my eyes and went along. Partly curious, partly skeptical. I had read the book by Kewani Lapsaritis, The Sasquatch People and the Interdimensional Connection. I was curious to know who is going to be heading this conference and what their underlying motivations might be. Would it match what I read in the book, or would it be a marketing endeavor to capitalize on the Bigfoot brand? At the conference, I learned that the Sasquatch people, according to Lapsaritis, were fulfilling their evolutionary mission and that it was time to reach out to humanity. After hundreds of thousands of years of dissociation, it was time to reconnect with their smaller, more technologically savvy brethren. He went on to say that the Sasquatch were looking for members of humanity who were willing to act as ambassadors for them. I wasn't sure what this meant, but it stood out for me. I heard dozens of stories of people's encounters with Sasquatch, all of them obviously believing what they saw and experienced. Their recollections jogged loose a memory I'd had as a child. By the end of the weekend, I knew something had happened. I'm a meditator of some 30 years' experience with special education in that area, and have grown to be sensitive to certain things. By the end of the weekend, I felt like someone had hollowed out a watermelon, put a couple of heat coils to it, and shoved it on my head. My head felt that heavy and that hot, not just at the moment, but for the entire 12-hour drive home and longer. I had no desire to listen to music, podcasts, the radio, or even talk with my family, who, coincidentally, were going through something similar. I don't know exactly what happened that weekend, and I can't speak for anyone else's experience, but something unusual happened. Today, I've learned as much as I can about the Sasquatch, primarily in Native American oral histories and books by people who, pursue relationships with the Sasquatch as opposed to hunt them for monetary gain or fame. I talk about them with full understanding and belief that they are a part of my planet's evolution, and I'm excited about their eventual integration with humanity. Yeah. All right. So I haven't ever heard of Sasquatch Con, I guess is the way I would shorten that. Is it, would you say it's something that's what's the words? You wouldn't consider it mainstream? Like as kind of a like something that a lot of people go to? What was the attendance like?
Probably 200, 300 people.
Okay.
Yeah, there was plenty of people there. Plenty of people who felt connected to the subject very strongly.
Gotcha. Okay.
my brother notwithstanding. And by the end of the weekend, I had my mind was much more open to the possibility.
Right. Okay. Now, I think I may have, how you've talked about it to me, I think I may have had one such experience in my time. But have you had any other experiences aside from at Sasquatch Con that that are reminiscent of the things that were mentioned in the book?
Interestingly, yes. In the story that you read, I mentioned that it had jogged a memory
Right.
in me. When I was 5, 6 years old, we lived in Ukiah, up in the mountains, and we were staying in a house that needed a lot of work, but it was deep in the woods, and my brother and I shared a room. There was very little furnishing, no curtains. And one night, I remember looking up from my bed out through the window above my brother's bed and seeing 2 enormous stars. I mean, they were so big, I just kept looking at them. And pretty soon I realized that those weren't stars. They were eyes.
Oh.
And the eyes were looking back at me. And I got terrified.
I bet.
Pretty much scared witless. And I left my bed knowing that my brother was doomed. And I ran out into the hallway and I tried to crawl underneath a chair and hide there, and there wasn't enough room, so I tried to go into my parents' room and crawled into their bed, and they kind of kicked me out. So I went back to the chair and I slept in the hallway under that chair. And the next morning I walked into my bedroom, and on the window that had no curtains or anything were these giant handprints, and it looked like they were just touching the window, and the handprints weren't from oil or anything, it was from dust, because the fingers were fuzzy.
Gotcha.
There was like hair around them, and they had touched all over the window. And the window was a big window, and it was covered with these giant handprints.
Huh.
And I ran back to my parents' room and I said, Mom, Dad, I saw something. Something was looking back at me, and nothing came of it. I remember that afternoon watching my dad wash the window off with a hose. He couldn't reach the window, so he had to shoot water up at it.
Right.
Because
yeah,
I don't know what was looking back at me, but it had to be 12 feet tall at least, 14 maybe, or maybe it was floating. I don't know.
Right. It had to reach that window somehow,
and it was looking down through the window at me.
Yeah. Oh. How close is the roof, would you say? Well, if from your recollection, do you think it might have been possible that it was hanging down from the roof?
No.
Okay.
Not a chance. Literally, it looked like there were 2 stars. I was looking up into the heavens at 2 stars.
Okay.
Not a chance.
That's interesting. I totally get the instant fear from realizing that those are eyes you're looking at. Like, that gave me a little bit of chills hearing that. You're like, I'm looking at 2 stars. I'm like, oh, I think I know where this is going. They were eyes. That,
So, from jumping way back, to Ron Cole many years later.
Right.
I had, of course, that I remembered that at the conference. My question then was, what was the message? What was trying to be said? I mean, if it really wanted to harm me, it could have just broken through the window, crawled in, and eaten me and my brother or whatever. But that isn't what happened. So what was the message?
Now, this is, of course, my interpretation is that it might be sowing the seed, so to speak. That memory. Putting it in there and then letting it stew for a long time. Knowing that you'd go to Sasquatch Con and it'd be recollected or something like that.
To the point where I remember the question from Kiwani Lapsaritis, the head of the conference, was the Sasquatch people are looking for emissaries. They're looking for ambassadors to represent them to humanity. And
Right.
I remember sitting in my chair thinking, I do this for other things. I am willing to do that, provided I come to the conclusion that this is real.
Right.
And I would be willing to do that. And here I am today on your podcast.
I see. For sure. Is that the only one that you can remember? Has there been other encounters in more recent days that you can think of? No, just the one.
I do a survival and awareness summer camp.
Right.
And that's for 9 to 12-year-olds, 13 to 18-year-olds. But there's also Tier 3, an adult survival camp that I organize with friends. And I had an experience that wasn't nearly as dramatic as the one I experienced as a child. But at Tier 3, we were up in the on the Smith River, way, way up by Fort, I can't remember the name of it.
Lincoln?
No.
Well, it's not Bragg.
No.
Wouldn't be Fort Dick, would it?
No. It's probably a 3-hour drive.
Mm-hmm.
And
I was like way out the back of Smith River, like the actual river itself.
And, I can't remember the name of the area.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not unknown for people to go four-wheeling up there. And this is where we were going to be holding our Tier 3 survival platform.
Right.
And in the process, because we were not allowed to bring anything more than 2 items with us, a knife and a pot, a blanket, and a bow drill, whatever. We have to do a lot of foraging in order to have enough food for the time that we're going to be out there. So in the process, of course, I'm jumping rocks, running upstream, upriver, and I get to a point where I feel like I can't move forward anymore. I cannot. I'm just like, this feels like about as far as I'm supposed to go, and there is nothing that I could see that
would indicate it.
Yeah, that would tell me, do not go, do not pass go.
Yeah, there wasn't like big
food.
old brambles or anything. It was just a spot.
Wide open river. I should have been able to continue going, but I couldn't do it. And I remembered at that point that maybe I need to just ask permission.
Right.
And so I did, and I went back. And then tried it again the next day, and I didn't meet any resistance. I just went forward.
Right.
And of course, this reminded me of a time my father had also gone up Hull Mountain. It was the game preserve in the Lake Pillsbury area, and he was hiking also and ran into this intense wall of fear.
Right.
I mean, my dad has spent days, weeks out in the wilderness as a child, as a teenager, as an adult. No, there's nothing
hesitation
for him, not at all. And for him to run into this wall of fear just like stopped him dead in his tracks. He backed up and he didn't feel anything anymore. Took a couple steps forward and felt the fear again.
Right. So it's a real border of fear.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So going back to me running up the Smith River, I didn't meet any resistance. I felt fine. I felt peaceful, and I left a jar of honey in a very tall dead tree, knowing that somebody might
Come
find
get
that
it
someday.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if I'm putting a mental projection of what I'm doing,
putting the intention into it,
and gratitude for allowing me to go into this area where who knows
what was going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was the other experience that I'd had personally. Now, why am I telling you about the walls of fear and meeting resistance and things like that? Well, one of the things among the things I learned at the Sasquatch conference by Kiwani is that the Sasquatch are a very evolved, non-animal, non-primate entity, and they're all over the planet. And apparently there are 7 species of them.
Okay.
You have the dog face, baboon face type. You've got the orangutan type. You've got the Sasquatch, and I'm not as familiar with the others, but there's also they call them the ancient ones, and the ancient ones are the most human looking of them all, whereas the Sasquatch have much longer arms, or have conical heads, and more ape-like looking. But they all have language. They all bury their dead or take care of their dead in a way that a real civilized society would. And they also have psychic abilities, like crazy psychic abilities. Apparently,
hence the wall of fear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hence the wall of fear. Hence the resistance. It's like, okay, my emotional body is responding to something here.
Yeah, definitely.
And they can feel or sense or do telepathy in a 5-mile radius around them. This is Kiwani himself is a telepath, and he has had countless interactions with the Sasquatch, or I guess the ancient ones more have a tendency more to communicate with him, calling him little brother and so on and so forth. And he has had many interactions with other types also. He's a scientist, and he would spend months sometimes out in the wilderness by himself doing tests, readings. He's a botanist, and he loves to collect plants, and did much research in the area of Native American experience with Sasquatch and the ancient ones, and of course the Native Americans are not people that have a vested interest in sharing that information, or
yeah, exactly. There's sacredness to it.
Well, maybe a sacredness. They actually saw the visitations by the Sasquatch as a very special event.
Yeah.
But there were also times when they would spend days, or sometimes even take mates.
Right.
There are many stories in Indian Native American histories where the tall, hairy Indian brother,
took a wife.
Dad was clearly not Native American.
Right.
And they were gifted in many ways also, and were considered wise men or wise women.
Gotcha. So they'd be, I guess in a weird way, you'd call them halflings, because they're like half human, half other. Is a way I've heard something like that described as a halfling, which is funny considering what I like to play in D&D is halflings, which are short people.
Yeah.
You got 2 different versions of halflings. You got half extra and then half person, and then you got people that are half size.
Right. Well, not exactly half size. I don't know how they would feel about it, but
right.
They actually kind of take offense at At least from my readings, my understanding, they take offense to how, and they specifically labeled the white race, treat them. You know, the way they hunt them, the way they pursue them for monetary gain, for fame, and the way they pollute the planet, and the way they are very short-sighted. They call the white race children because they don't understand what they're doing.
Right. I could see how that would come about, judging by most of European history, for one, and then most of American history for two. A lot of that was perpetrated by white settlers, white colonialists, and then all of Europe. It was rare to see anyone who was, as far as I'm aware, not white. You'd get your Moors here and there, but that was not as common.
Major Moors, that's the place where we went to for Tier 3.
What do you know? Right around to it.
Yeah. So it's interesting that the in art, you can see evidence of man's historical encounters with Sasquatch, the Ancient Ones, and the Bigfoot races. A lot in European art. Alexander the Great came across a family of Ancient Ones and deemed them to be evil. And in the art, it shows them throwing them into the bonfires.
Right.
So, and
I'll have to look into that because that's the first I've heard of it.
Yeah, and knights, images of just bas reliefs of knights battling Sasquatches.
Yeah, I can see how that connotation would come about if we're throwing them into bonfires and hitting them with sharp sticks.
Oh, Australia, shooting them.
Yep. Oh boy, Australia's a real interesting place. They got all sorts of things over there. Like
that is a very old continent.
Yeah. So yeah, I have no idea what's going on over there. I have a couple friends over there, and like you've got all the ancient plateaus and whatever's under there, and then you've got spiders in your shoes and magpies diving for your head. It's like they don't want you there. Whatever's going on, the wildlife don't want you there.
I didn't feel that way when I was there.
Oh, you what?
Yeah.
News to me. Oh, I thought you went to New Zealand.
I did.
Oh, both?
Yeah, when it's low tide, you can walk to Australia. You're the only one who knew that was a joke.
Yeah, I know they're not that close. I know a guy who lives there. He would have walked to New Zealand by now.
Yeah, I stayed in Brisbane. Did a lot of surfing over there.
Yeah, I hear it's beautiful out there.
In an exposed sort of way,
yeah. It is like just a wide landscape before you, if you can actually find it.
And then there's jungle.
Yep.
And then at least the rivers on the side where I was at were just black with tannins. Tannins come out of the tree.
Yeah.
And but it was just freaking gorgeous.
Yeah.
Just gorgeous.
Yeah, I'll have to go out there. I've been meaning to go out there and see him. I just have yet to do so. Especially with the world as it is.
Yeah, and if you can, go by yourself, go into the wilderness or the outback, and just stay out there as long as you can. And while you're out there, start meditating, because the Sasquatch are drawn to
that,
to meditation. They're also drawn to like holy music.
Right, like hymns and your Gregorian chants and all that.
That kind of vibration draws them.
Right.
And they will observe you from hiding for a long time before they're kind of mischievous. They'll toss a stick out there.
I've kind of gathered that from my limited experience.
But yeah, they're not. There's no harm and no malice intended in the things that they do. But imagine, somebody who's very curious.
Yeah.
I want to see what your reaction is.
Right. Yeah. Because I remember I think you were there for this when we were doing a hunt in the dark out the back of the fairgrounds.
Oh yeah.
And
It
I
was a
went
blast.
off the bounds because I thought somebody had gone off the bounds, and I was getting paid to go make sure that nobody got lost in the woods while we were doing this. So I go out there and I get to this forked tree, and I feel this intense, like, I guess it would be fear, but it felt more like, yeah, come closer. And I was like, maybe not. I'm just going to go. Yeah, cool. And I turned around, and like the whole time in my head, I'm like, I'm going. Just don't, just I'm going. Don't. And then nothing happened.
One of the benefits of living where we live is that we're surrounded by wilderness.
Yeah.
Even our town is inundated with wilderness. So I run a nonprofit called Gateway Education. And
Shameless plug.
Occasionally, the county sends probation people who have gotten a ticket or whatever and have to do some community service. They call me up and say, "Hey, Ron, can you do you got some work for these
Yeah,
guys?"
you put this guy to work.
Yeah, so I would send them over to the fairgrounds and to work on the disc golf course that's in the woods over there. And one of the people that I sent in, and, explained exactly what needed to be done and everything. Took his dog. And,
Yeah, I think I've talked to him.
and
about it.
this is not a timid character.
Oh yeah.
This guy has been around the block, and he's tough, and he's proud of it. And calls me one day from the fairgrounds, just sobbing, saying, "I don't know what's out here, but I can feel it. It's watching me."
Yeah.
And his dog was freaking out.
Yeah.
And it would not surprise me at all that he'd had an encounter.
Yeah, it's only that one section I've found, because when I was out there in the other section, it was fine. I didn't feel watched and kind of afraid the entire time. But when I was over there, it was just, there was something. It felt little wrong when we started and everyone ran out. I'm like, oh, dread. Just a sudden dread fell over me. And it seemed like everyone else seemed fine, but it was me. I was like, oh, okay, this is not going to be good for me.
No, I mean, if everybody, I wish, it's a lot of people probably would think it was silly, but to feel a sense of gratitude every time they go into the woods, and, thank for sharing their space with us so that we can play disc golf and get away from our electronics and our stressors.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. I don't think I have the capacity at present to always do that, but I understand the sentiment.
I understand what you mean too, because I don't do it every time. I have not habitualized myself to doing that every time I go into the wilderness. I'm getting there though, and they're helping.
Yeah.
For example, how are they helping? Well, Kiwani, who is in constant contact with the Sasquatch, were given this by the Sasquatch. They didn't actually print it out, everything. They told him what to do.
Right, they basically gave him the instructions to create the thing.
Yeah, and they said, print this out, and then and go ahead and read it to your audience. What it says.
Yeah. So just for you all at home, there is a kind of a square situation, and in the middle there's a circle. There's no color. It's entirely blank from any embellishment, and it just says authentic perfection enlivenment. Then there's the circle, and it says place on circle for 30 seconds. Field of consciousness technology enlivenment. Share with self in areas for planetary reclamation phase. More info at I'm not going to read that URL. That's a long URL.
Okay, so what it's doing basically is if you put something in that circle, it will charge it. If you leave it there for 30 seconds, it will charge it with the energy of authentic perfection.
Okay.
And you're going, what is authentic perfection? Well, I don't know either, but it's what it means, I believe, is that at its source, the purest form of energy will come out. That which is already Earth, that was Earth millions of years ago, the most the essence of that will come through there, charge whatever's in there, and then it will begin to radiate authentic perfection wherever you put it.
Gotcha.
And they've asked that you use quartz. You can use anything. You can even use rice.
Right.
But they ask that you use quartz, and then you take that quartz and you bury it at least 6 inches or more into the earth.
Okay.
Wherever you think authentic perfection is needed. So I've put these around Crescent City and, in the harbor even. And I don't know if you can feel it, but I had my partner's grandson touch it in the circle. And he put his finger, and he was like 7 years old, put his finger in the circle and then pulled it away really fast. He says, "What was that?" That is pretty much unbiased child.
Right. Yeah.
Getting something out of that.
Yeah.
And because I've been meditating for a long time, I am sensitive to energy. I know that even though I've had this paper for 10 years, there is still energy in that circle if you put your finger in it.
Right. And I'm curious, where does that energy come from? Is it an intention thing? Is it something further than that? Is it... I'm just curious where exactly the channeling energy of a printer allows for the perfection, the words that you were saying that I can't seem to bring back to me.
Intention goes beyond technology. And you know that in hospitals, they have prayer lists. I mean, actual on-the-wall prayer lists for patients, right?
Yeah.
And insurance companies believe that stuff. They believe, they have seen the statistics, and if you meditate, your life insurance premiums drop because they know you're going to live longer.
Okay.
Prayer lists in hospitals, the patients that are on those lists heal 20% faster, on average, 20% faster than patients who are not on that list. And the people who send those prayers or those meditations benefit also. Again, lowering your life insurance premiums.
Right.
You can't argue with insurance companies.
Yeah,
because everything they do is based on statistics.
Right.
You mind if I open this beer?
Oh, yeah, sure. Go ahead. We like to keep it casual.
It's not a beer. It's a bubbly water.
Yeah, we like to keep it casual here.
Cucumber mint. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just curious, because I'm seeing where the intention comes in, right? I'm just trying to figure out whose intention created this, so to speak. Was it like, and I hesitate to say this, but a coven of Sasquatches putting their brains together to put this intention out in the world, or was it
have to be
a guy?
A coven of Sasquatch, or maybe a meditation group of Sasquatch, who remember that their mission is to integrate with humanity.
Right.
This is their time to do so.
Yeah.
And in order, they live in a pristine environment, or as pristine as will allow them.
Right.
So if they're going to be coming out, maybe they want to make the rest of the world more as pristine as where they're coming from, so that there's not so much culture shock. Yeah. Remember, these are highly evolved, highly spiritually, psychically evolved entities. They haven't focused on technology the way we have.
Right.
Their specialty is psionics, psychic energy, spirituality, the ability to do all sorts of auditory or psychic things, like creating that emotional wall that I couldn't pass through, or the wall of fear that my dad ran into.
Yeah. The esoteric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also why, and I have nothing except, I have no evidence of this, but they also work with the Space Brothers. That's right. They work with extraterrestrials.
Oh, okay. I was curious what you meant by that.
The extraterrestrials recognize them as an evolved, peaceful species, and so they will pick them up. They will work together for whatever special missions that they have. Right. Yeah. And then they'll get them dropped off. They even are allowed to man some of those spacecraft and operate them.
Gotcha.
Because they have the mental capacity and control to do so. You know, most of us don't have that. You know, our minds are kind of everywhere.
Yeah.
So we can't.
We are scattered.
I'd be afraid to try to pilot a saucer myself.
Oh yeah. I mean, if a saucer landed on my front lawn and an alien threw me the keys, I'd probably piss myself.
Hey, all fluids are sacred apparently, so.
Huh. Interesting. News to me. I guess pissing on someone's grave is sacred now.
What's your intention?
Right, exactly. There it is. That's the intention. Peace. Usually pissing on someone's grave is not a good thing.
The intention usually.
It's all the intention, yeah.
Yeah.
This is all a lot to process for me. Just like the whole of it, you know? Like I'm taking it in and I'm trying to spit it back out in a way I understand.
You are the everyman. There's a lot of people like you out there that are hearing this for the first time on your podcast and going, oh my gosh, I don't know what to believe. This guy's out of it, completely out of it.
Right.
But because of my own experiences, because I can speak from my own experiences, there's no way I can deny what I saw, what I experienced. So I can speak from that, and I have complete confidence in that. Also, in that, for some people, this is going to resonate. I have spoken, you know, at parties. I go to parties, and on a whim, I'll say, "Hey, has anybody had a Sasquatch experience?" And inevitably, a few heads will turn like, "Oh my gosh,
what am I getting into?
Who do I share? I've always wanted to share this, but I never. Nobody. I thought they'd think I was crazy. So you know, I get it.
Yeah,
I get it. I was kind of looking at you, thinking, I wonder what Sebastian's going to think of me telling him about my Sasquatch experience.
Yeah. Now I trust you to believe your experiences and to not be somewhere else on them. But I was raised by a skeptic, and I'm going to be a little skeptical of things. Not any disrespect towards them or you. I am just skeptical of many things.
Mm-hmm.
I like the esoteric, funny enough, for the aesthetic, and not so much. I haven't found myself in a place that it resonates with me. I haven't found it in a place that seems to. I haven't borne fruit of it as far as I've seen. Now, not to say that isn't out there. I've had my own experiences of strange things, be them walls of fear, as you've so discussed, or strange things in my house that I don't like. And we've dealt with them, I think, through esoteric means, because they're esoteric things. Mm-hmm. But that's mainly because my mother is a witch and believes in those things more than I do.
Mm-hmm.
But she said intention is always important.
Yeah. Definitely. And perspective.
Yes, perspective as well.
If your perspective is one of, I am skeptical and I don't believe this is going to, I doubt this a lot, then be prepared to encounter what you believe. And, but
you'll see what you want to see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you go in with an open heart, singing a hymn,
right,
and showing that your intentions are peaceful, and you're out in the middle of nowhere,
something might happen.
You've opened a door.
Right. Yeah. Ooh, doors. Opening doors is an interesting thing for my family, particularly with my mother and an experience with two mirrors facing each other. I've found an interesting term: don't put two mirrors next to each other, or else they'll start scheming. And well, I think my mother once opened a door that she did not want to open. And so I feel, I guess, a generational don't open doors that you're not absolutely certain of. And I think that might be part of why this whole esoteric thing is more of a fascination than a lifestyle.
Yeah. Kiwani said that the reason scientists can't find anything on Sasquatch, no evidence, is because of that very skepticism. It's like, I need to see hard, fast proof.
Right.
Well, they're not going to give it to you. But there's lots of circumstantial evidence.
Yeah.
Lots of oral histories of the Native Americans. How many stories in the diaries of the pioneers, the art in Europe,
Right.
and it goes back thousands and thousands of years. I mean, hundreds of thousands of years. If an ancient one lives, the average lifespan is 10,000 years. They can tell you they can have a perspective on history that would be interesting, and they wrote it down through one of those ambassadors, one of those emissaries, and their history of the planet is amazing, and it's online, and you can read it. Just look, cross-reference Sasquatch histories, you'll find it.
Okay.
I mean, they talk about space battles,
Right.
hundreds of thousands of years ago, and how the creation of man, and how extraterrestrials got together, and there was like 22 different experiments, and and humanity was used as slaves for mining minerals and things like that.
Sounds very Lovecraftian.
Without the monster itself, just
Right. Well, I mean, the whole extraterrestrial thing. Lovecraft loves his extraterrestrials. Well, loves using the concept of an extraterrestrial to do many things. Ancient civilizations, the Shoggoth created. There was a Shoggoth, and then there was, I can't remember the exact name of the civilization, but there were these like fungi people, and they created humans as slaves, and then we uprose and killed them long ago, and then we spread out across the world, and then here we are. Their ancient
maybe
cities.
Lovecraft knew something.
Yeah.
Didn't.
Well, he certainly had a lot of interesting views. Not a lot of them work today. He was very racist for his time, and there was a lot of mentions of like interbreeding. Whoa.
Well, Lovecraft's characters usually went insane, didn't they?
Yeah, no, that's his favorite thing to do is throw them into the insanity abyss.
That's the way the Sasquatch see us, as insane.
Yeah, I mean,
who else destroys the place where they live, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally get it. I mean, if like my dog started having anxiety and ripping up the carpet, I'd think my dog went insane. We're little monkeys with anxiety. Is, I think, one of the best ways to describe us is little anxiety monkeys. We run around freaking out for less than 100 years and then we die. And that's about it.
So
sometimes we blow up stuff.
There's the possibility that other members in your audience would want to learn more about Sasquatch. And
yeah.
There's one book I would recommend.
Okay.
It's called The Sasquatch People, The Interdimensional Connection.
Gotcha. And that's that book by
Kiwani Lapsaritis.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, he does a really good job of
laying it out.
The different species,
right?
Their some of their customs. A lot of people actually have relationship with Sasquatch, people who live near the woods, and the Sasquatch can make themselves invisible,
right?
But their eyes still stand out.
Yeah,
and the eyes are red or white.
That tracks over a lot of the amount of lore I've read is not a whole lot on the entirety of Bigfoot and their civilization and all that, but I have read a little bit of West Virginian taxonomy on them, little like their different subspecies is how they call them, and quite often their eyes are white or red. Sometimes I think there's one subspecies that has yellow eyes, but that I don't know exactly what the deal is. I just know there's a bunch of them. Some of them like to eat apples, and some of them sleep in trees, and that's about all I remember.
You reminded me of a gentleman by the name of Paul, he's a amateur mushroomer and loves going into the wilderness, and he also talks about Sasquatch and things like that, and he lives right on the edge of the woods. Got several fruit trees. One of them is an apple tree, and it's a fairly large apple tree.
Right.
And, the elk go through here and they take
chew
what
out the
they
bottom.
will, and
Yeah.
they take anything they can reach, which is pretty high. But when he came out one day and he saw that all his apples were gone, they weren't on the ground, and all the ones from the top of the tree were gone.
Out in smoke. Yeah. Ooh.
He was like, not a lot of things out there that can do that, so
We got two
I'm
options.
going to have to guess.
We got two options. We got Sasquatch, or we got someone who's real committed to steal my apples in the middle of the night with an apple picker.
Exactly.
And I don't know anyone with an apple picker. That ain't me kind of situation. I totally get, See, I remember we had a limb snap off our plum tree, and like it just like the whole limb gone. And that's like, it's vaguely familiar to me to have just something on your tree completely gone. We think it was a bear originally, but who knows? Those are nice plums.
Who knows? Kiwani was on an island off the coast of Washington, on an island that he knew that was known for having the people on
Right.
them. And he was doing his usual thing where he would, do his hour-long meditation in the morning, hour in the evening, and after several days, heard a tremendous tree fall, 50, 60-foot tree fall crash just a little ways from his tent. And he ran out there and he looked, and there was no
Nothing
tree.
there.
Nothing.
Yeah.
But this kept happening
Repeatedly.
for weeks.
Right.
Where trees were crashing all around him.
Yeah, so
but
it's
there
just
wasn't
checking
a single
them.
tree.
They're
Yeah.
just checking them.
Yeah,
What
they
you
were
gonna do, bud?
not just checking with him. I think they were messing with him, just
Yeah.
having fun.
Yeah, it's just like, what you gonna do, bud?
But how do you create the sound of a tree falling and crashing? I mean, it's like...
Yeah. Without crashing a whole tree.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so there are things that I don't understand about the quantum realm, which is where they do what they do. They can, Kiwani talked about how they had helped him get his car. The car was just shot. It shouldn't have been able to get miles down the road the way it did.
Right.
And it finally got there, and it just leaned over and fell over. The wheel fell off.
Yeah.
But they'd kept it together for him. But yeah, that's the Sasquatch people, the interdimensional connection.
Got a lot of
Great
plugs
book.
tonight, for sure. And not to take away from the moment, but another plug. This is a radio show that likes its viewer submissions. If you have any, send them to lycaeusfrequency at gmail.com. That's LYCAEUS frequency.com at gmail.com. Anyways, just had to get that plug in there. Make sure that people send me viewer submissions.
That's
My
your
inbox
job.
is running dry. I like it when the creeks are bountiful with stories and viewer submissions, and all I have is nothing right now.
So does your audience have the ability to communicate and ask questions?
Yes, same email I just said. If you have questions that you want to send in, I can certainly forward them along.
Oh, okay.
If that is something that you lovely listeners would like to establish, failing that, I'm sure the communication will make its way to me. I have made myself available.
You can call my number too.
Yeah, I mean, if you're open to sharing it for these things.
Yeah, 707-954-7666. Shoot me a text, and we can discuss your question.
Well, there you go. You have your contact if you're looking for a Sasquatch ambassador. If you need a guy who knows about Sasquatch, well, we got one right here. I wouldn't call myself a knowledgeable sort, but you certainly seem to be on this subject. And many more that relate to it, it seems, in this kind of spider web of things.
Yeah, I wouldn't call myself an emissary or an ambassador so much as a believer now.
Mm-hmm.
And I am looking for my next experience. I'm asking the universe for it. And I will take the time to go out in the wilderness and do what's needed to open up that possibility.
For sure. It's certainly interesting. The all of this is spinning around in my head here, going out in the woods where no one is out there, just you and, well, maybe someone else, but you can't be sure, can you?
The way I look at it is maybe why does society quash the information? I mean, you're basically a nutcase if you believe in Sasquatch. You're a nutcase if you believe in extraterrestrials also. It's only recently that the evidence has been so profound that people are
starting
getting
to trickle out,
recognized as, oh, okay, you're not crazy because I saw a UFO too, you know?
Right.
But the thing is, once people realize that we are sharing the planet with a whole nother species of intelligent
life.
Yeah. And once we realize that the extraterrestrials they're legit, they're there.
Yeah.
Where the heck are they coming from? How are they getting here?
Right,
What
and
is
then all
powering
those
these vehicles?
Exactly.
How, why is all this information being stifled? What are they trying to hide? Why? What is it that we're not supposed to know?
My thoughts are that people don't like change.
So you're implying that the current discomfort and pollution and everything is intentional?
Not necessarily that the information being quashed, that this information, the thoughts of these things that have been conspiracy theories that have been thrown at the wall and all over the place for many years, being tangible, being something that is believed, is a change that not a lot of people are ready for.
But who determines what we're ready for?
Well, ready for in the sense of like each person, individual, society as a whole seems to not be ready for vast changes, and I think it comes from the psychology that what I was raised with is good enough. It got you to survive. Is how I've heard it kind of described as, and that's why the older generation tends to not like new things. Is because, well, that wasn't around when I was raised. That I don't know if that's gonna let you survive, if that's gonna change you in some tangible way that is going to screw you over later. And so I think it's kind of a society-wide version of that. Well, we've been doing it this way for long enough, and it's gotten us this far, hasn't it?
Well, there's got to be a reason why the Sasquatch are willing to, why do they feel like they're ready to start coming out now?
Yeah.
Unless I wouldn't if humanity was staying the same, but since humanity seems to be changing, that was the trigger for the Sasquatch to start wanting to come out. And there seems to be a lot of information on extraterrestrials, things that are happening now that have never happened before. The planetary changes.
Yeah.
For God's sakes, Neptune is heating up, not by Fahrenheit, not by degrees, but by centigrade. It's like, why is an entire planet heating up?
Yeah.
Quickly.
Yeah.
So it's really exciting. This is an extraordinarily exciting time.
Oh, definitely.
When we've got, crystals that vibrate and release authentic perfection. I mean, I haven't got instruments that are sensitive enough to detect the vibration rate of those things compared to a standard piece of quartz. But,
right.
I tend to believe that exists right now, that it's happening, and everything, all the vibration in every person and place and planet is increasing. It's just incredibly exciting to be alive right now.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be an extraordinary year. This and next year are going to be, our lives aren't going to be the same.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know in the esoteric sense if that's going to be true, but certainly the times are changing, both in, I suppose, the metaphysical realm, because I don't keep in touch with those things as much as I probably ought to. for this image. I like to compose of myself as an esotericist.
Oh, I'm glad you own that.
But also, I mean, in the political realm, there's a lot of things going on. Roe v. Wade just got that's in its own fight. A lot of things are up in the air. Both.
Yeah, it doesn't get any uglier than it seems to be right now.
Yeah.
But they always say it's darkest just before the dawn.
Yeah, everything gets it only gets worse before it gets better. Yeah. Well, folks, we have come to 11:56, the first time check of the night and nearly the end of the night. Thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate that.
Sebastian, thank you so much for having this show so that people have the opportunity to share new knowledge.
Yeah.
I look forward to listening more often.
Yeah. Well, I am totally here for it. I will warn you, most of what I spew here on this show is nonfiction, or sorry, not nonfiction, fiction. A lot of it's internet fiction that is spooky, and well, there's some mythological stuff I throw in there to try to categorize it, but I'm pretty sure most of this is mythological, or fictional.
In that case, it makes me curious why I'm here. But
I bring you on here because I talk about cryptids. And I count Sasquatch as cryptid because it's not scientifically like accepted as something that exists, but a lot of people have had experiences around it, and it is an entity. The Sasquatch as a whole are entities that aren't recognized by science, and well, I think that's a cryptid.
A cryptid?
Yeah, cryptozoology, the study of things that nobody really has solid proof of that can be definitely categorized. Loch Ness Monster, Sasquatch, Mothman, all that stuff.
Thank you. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. It's an interest of mine seeing the strange things of the world, and well, comparatively to us, and of course everything is relative. The Sasquatch are strange. They have things we don't understand.
Well, I hope you understand a little bit more tonight.
Yeah, definitely. It was very enlightening. Well, 11:58. I think we're gonna hop off for the night now, seeing as well, we've done a lot of talking and no music, and hell, I'm tired. So from here at KFUG Community Radio, thank you for listening and have a good night, y'all.
Good night.